just to let you know who we are. But just about me, I've been in the cloud space in various forms for about a decade. I was a software engineer way back earlier in my career, and then moved into the pre-sales role, kind of this role here, doing similar things in other companies. But most recently, I was at Google, actually, Google in California, doing customer engineering role there. So very good to be participating in this. Was hoping to get out there in person, but things came up at the house here. I'm based in Texas, outside of Austin, so I couldn't make it, but good to see you all virtually. So I will pass it off to Amir for an intro.
Hey everybody, I'm going to turn on my camera for introduction. In the car, unfortunately, I had a conflict arise. I like Barry, wanted to join you guys in person today, but unfortunately was not able to. Very glad that Leo Thornton, our alliance manager, was able to come in person. I'm an account executive with 66 Degrees. I cover the Mid-Atlantic region, which includes the Philadelphia region. A little bit about me: I was also previously at Google. Was in a partner engineering role, helping our field team scale through partners. And I'll pass it over to Leo from our team to introduce himself next.
Want to intro yourself, Leo?
Leo was the gentleman that was in here. Right?
Oh, Leo just stepped out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No worries. How about folks on want to do the Google intros next? We already did that, didn't we? How about on? We want to go through other participants.
Yeah, we have some guests here. Let's start with you, John, if you want to introduce yourself and what you're looking to get out of our event here today.
Oh, Wojnowski?
Yeah, John.
Yeah, Wayne.
Oh, I thought we meant like the other John. Yeah, so essentially, data engineer. I'm really poor at giving out my spiel, but data engineer, primarily dealing with the Microsoft stack here. We also have a bit of control with some ETL tools, and ultimately, I'm just here to learn what BigQuery has to offer, and just what monetizations we could see that we could implement in our current data warehouse. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thanks for that. Zalong Wang, if you want to just introduce yourself and just tell us, what are you looking to get out of our event today?
Sure. Hi. Oh, my camera. Okay, now it's on. Hi, everybody. I am a data scientist, but I'm currently kind of like in a rotation with Wayne Corey in the data engineering team. So I also learned about this event through Dave. So I think the biggest portion that I'm curious about is the BigQuery part. I don't really have a lot of experience with it. Like I've touched it a little bit, but then I'm definitely curious about learning more on that portion, and like the ETL process. How can we leverage that? Maybe also because I'm going to be working on a bunch of things like machine learning model, like building model, different kind of things. So like it would be interesting to see if we can leverage BigQuery for those like prediction modeling kind of work that I may be doing in the future.
All right, cool. Thank you so much, and thanks for coming. I think it's Hong Dewan. If you'd like to introduce yourself and just tell us what you want to get out of this event today. Oh, he's left in.
Pressure.
I think it's Yvonne King. If you'd like to just introduce yourself and just tell us what you're looking to get out of our event today.
Sure. Hi, I'm Yvonne King. I just started with Komodo 3 weeks ago, so I got brought on, and I'm here just to learn and absorb everything that I can to hopefully make myself a little more useful to my team.
And what's your title?
My title is Data Analytics Engineer, and I'll be starting off with the data engineering team.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Yvonne.
So I guess
Sorry.
those were all. Oh, go ahead,
Oh,
Barry.
sorry, I just want to ask those who introduce themselves. When you do, maybe just like Yvonne, how much GCP experience have you had? I'm kind of curious about that. So I might gauge our conversation here. Just have you ever worked with GCP before, or not at all? Totally new. Okay, great.
So
All right.
awesome.
Hey, if I go real quick, my name's Corey Hulse. I'm the director of data engineering here. And so from an overarching stack point of view, I've been with the company for about 5 years now. And in terms of if we want to talk about what our current stack is, at least on the data engineering side, we have a bunch of tools, and basically like Snowflake is kind of the main data warehouse where things go. But from a BigQuery perspective, BigQuery is the platform that we're using right now, especially as it relates to Google Analytics data. And what I see is at some point, a vision in the future, maybe 6 months, maybe sooner, depending on when priorities shake out, that like we need to reshape what we're doing within BigQuery to better support Google Analytics data. We use DBT here for our for our data manipulation and the creation of the data warehouse. And my vision, if we had John here, he might disagree with me, but having better control within that BigQuery side to be able to better manage the Google Analytics data. And then my dream is to deploy a DBT project within BigQuery to be able to do the manipulations that are necessary on the BigQuery side. I think another thing, I don't know if it's relevant to the topic for today or not, that Airflow, we're just starting our Airflow journey. And I know that we use GCP for Airflow. The other thing that we just signed a contract with Astronomer, and to be able to set up Astronomer within our GCP environment. And now we're definitely on the fringe in terms of the technology side, in terms of like what I know about that Astronomer implementation. But we do see Astronomer as kind of a future for us for that, the kind of the coordination and logistical touch point. The other like more overarching thing that I'm interested in is kind of like just a more complete data ecosystem. You know, back 10 years ago, you'd have something like data science, which was just kind of a one-way journey, right? Data would come in, and then data gets extracted by the data scientists, and they go do their data science thing, and then oh, you get a report or you get some sort of output. But I'm very interested in continuing more kind of like closed loop applications and taking advantage of things that Google Cloud can offer, taking advantage of things that Airflow can offer, to be able to have take data inputs, spit out the outputs, put it into data science land, but have it be closed loop to bring it back into centralized data stores and customer attribution and product attribution and fun things of that nature to make data processes more closed loop than I feel like that they have been in the past. And I feel like that's the particular journey that we're on at the moment. So I'll stop rambling there and take a pause.
No, thank you for that. I think some of the other folks on your line are some Googlers. So yeah, I think Barry, we can go ahead and get started with our presentation.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, thank you all for joining today. We're going to talk, as you know, the topic BigQuery and Looker, and how the format will go. We'll be doing this brief overview of both tools, BigQuery and Looker, and then we'll be moving on to probably the more interesting parts will be the labs, where you get a chance to get some hands-on experience with both. So if you're brand new to GCP and BigQuery and Looker, you got a chance to actually do some real hands-on, very basic things, but give you a first dip into what those platforms can provide and what they're like. So we've already introduced ourselves, but we're your hosts, Len from Google and myself from 66 Degrees, customer engineer, both of us. So very good to meet you all. Thanks all for making the time to show up both in person and online. So just a little bit of a spiel about 66 Degrees. And we're a premier Google partner. So there's a whole host of aspects of being a premier Google partner. Lots of things like accreditations that Google has given us, of things that we can do. We're a managed service provider, application development, a whole host of things that we do well enough that Google gives us their blessing as being a partner for those certain topic areas. And we are Google specific, Google focused, 100% Google. We have engineers, over 250 certifications of our engineers all on staff. We're a heavily engineering-oriented company. Many distinctions, 1,500 happy clients. So we're all Google all the time and are very much a premier, strong Google partner. There's a little bit about what we offer, just in a nutshell. Infrastructure modernization. We also we're a managed cloud provider, so we do cost optimization for customers. So what we can do is offer just the billing would go through us as a partner, but as part of that, it's not no cost to our customers, but something that we can offer cost optimization, architectural requirements, or some advisory roles in that regard. But also we have data analytics, a whole host of business practice areas, so we can help with the gamut of things in multiple ways. App development, innovation, and collaboration. We're heavily into Google Workspace too, as far as providing support and services around that. So enough about us, 66. That's us in general. But what we want to talk to now, why choose Google Cloud and why Google BigQuery? We're going to focus on BigQuery first, and then I'll pass it off to Len to talk about Looker. But let's go into BigQuery. Now, those of you who've been in the data space for a while, you understand that there's a lot of many challenges dealing with big data. How do you scale? If you have analysis tools or software packages that are installed either on-premise or maybe even in the cloud, you're installing them and managing yourself. A variety of different tools that are available to you. Now, it can be very difficult to scale those things. Maybe that works great in the beginning with a little bit of data, but as you grow and have more speed needs, I might find it's a little constraining. And also, how do you find the right people? If you need to get into, especially in the ML space, you need to get deep into ML, take advantage of all that data that you happen to have. It can be hard to find the right people for it. And also, there's the idea of costs too. You could, as far as scaling, you could build heavily on your infrastructure side to try and meet your peak demands. But then when things are slower, you're still paying all those extra costs. So that's where Google Cloud comes in. If you've probably heard of Google, you know, of course, the search engine that Google has. You probably think of also data in regards to Google. And Google Cloud in particular has a whole suite of services that for data analytics and data management. And one of the some key areas about what Google offers is that it's serverless. Like we'll find out about BigQuery, that there's nothing to install. It's just like if you worked with relational databases and other clouds before, all the management's taken care of by Google. You don't have to worry about data updates and making sure your system is most up to date. That's all done for you. And also Google, as we'll touch upon in just a second, it's a whole platform. It's not just something like BigQuery, which is a powerful data warehousing tool in its own right, but it's part of a larger suite of things available to you on the cloud, help make managing your data from end to end, from ingestion to curation to transformation, and then finally on the back end of getting it delivered to the people who need it, which is what it's all about. And then we have embedded ML, as we'll see in BigQuery. And you get a chance to play with that in some of the labs. And that's a very powerful feature because typically you would think you'd need to get a data scientist in order to build out code and models. And that's a very highly sought after, hard to find skill set. That's something we'll find out how Google Cloud makes it easy. And then, of course, Google's very committed to open source technologies. So more so, I think, than any other cloud vendor. The whole gamut from Kubernetes and many other things that it's just an example how Google is very committed to open source to avoid that vendor lock-in. And of course, it's built to scale. Everything in Google, all of Google Cloud came from what Google was doing behind the scenes and managing a worldwide search engine and ad engine with hundreds of millions of users per day or queries per day. So how to manage that and all those skills learned to do that scalability were brought to the cloud. There's just a little bit of a flavor of some of the offerings. I mentioned that platform. So if going from left to right, the ingestion, you have multiple tools like the query service, messaging service, data transfer services, a whole host of things. We're not going to be getting into a lot of these today, but just give you a flavor for what we mean by that end-to-end platform. And then on the streaming side, data flow to manage your data pipelines, data proc if you want to do processing, all a host of things, Apache Beam, and getting back to that commitment to open source. And then we come to BigQuery, storage. Storing that BigQuery lets you store a lot of your data at large scales, but also you might, as part of your data pipelines, you might want to leverage cloud storage as well. And then on the end there, analytics, TensorFlow, there's an ML built into BigQuery compute. We'll see that soon. So the whole host of things making it available. And if anyone has any questions along the way, please feel free to chime in. Any questions from anybody? Okay. So how does this all work? What's the vision for how this all could work? So going from left to right, from a data lifecycle perspective, we've got collection, multiple sources, any number of sources, some already on the cloud, some on premise, some in other applications that can output data, and those all would go into, say, BigQuery. This BigQuery storage in this case, because one of the things that you'll receive here from this diagram, BigQuery is a little different how it's architected behind the scenes. And then it separates the storage from the compute, which gives it a lot of flexibility and scalability. So these data sources on the collect side would go into storage. And if you need to transform it, there's data flow you can use to do that. Other tools possibly if you want to use the analysis through SQL, through the MLs, we'll see that all can happen in BigQuery compute. And then finally on the right side, that's where we get it exported to people who need it. And there's multiple ways to share it, either with the Looker or other tools, analytics tools, or if you have Tableau, a whole host of other tools. You're not restricted to anything that's strictly on Google. There's a lot of tooling you can use to visualize data from BigQuery. And we'll see a little bit more about Looker when we come to Lens part. So serverless, again, is key. Just to give you an example, maybe you've seen things like this before in the cloud, but if you do things on your own, talking about that scalability challenge that we mentioned before, all the monitoring, the performance sizing, the reliability, having to do all the updates and management of the platform yourself. But if you go look at serverless, a lot of the services, and BigQuery being one of them that's offered and serverlessly in the cloud, which is one of the real powers of the cloud resides, getting access to those serverless services, fully managed services, has a whole host of capabilities where you don't have to spend your time doing all that admin work so much. You can just focus on using the tool to get the most out of it. And here, just in a nutshell, is a little bit about BigQuery, where it's enterprise, Google's enterprise management data warehousing tool. Also, it's scalable. You'll find it's very performant. So even if you have multiple gigabytes or petabytes of data, and you can do SQL queries, and again, being part of that scalability, separating that storage from compute gives you that scalability, so you can query large sets of data very quickly. And of course, like everything else on Google Cloud, it's all encrypted. It's a whole, and also looking more on the right, there's several things make it unique. It's serverless, like we talked about, real-time streaming. We saw that pipeline a little bit earlier, how data can come real-time stream from a source transformation into BigQuery, then moved out to some curation layer, you might say, where it's delivered to end users. And also there's ML built in to BigQuery, which makes it really easy to do modeling, because your data is already there in BigQuery. How to make the most of it, the tools are right there. And speaking more of that, how do you do that ML? Well, basically, if you can see the little bits of blurbs of SQL there in the animation, when you're right inside BigQuery, you can actually use basic SQL commands with some extensions, machine learning extensions, to create a model, query a model, to do predictions on a model, and you'll get a chance to do that hands-on in the labs, which will be very insightful for you. But that is built right into BigQuery itself, so there's no need to build a model outside and import it. You can do that if you want to. If you have data scientists who have models built, you can do that. But if you just want to get into data modeling and take advantage of some of that data you've got in your BigQuery data warehouse, you can do that with the modeling built right in. And just to list a little bit about some of the models that are supported, this is just a limited sets. There's more available. You can see the full set in the docs. Just go find those, or they're listed to, linked to down below. But there's a whole host of things, from classification, regression models. Another interesting one is the matrix factorization, which is a recommendation engine, very Netflix style. So if you have retail space, or like maybe even certainly an online or web presence for e-commerce, you could plug in the recommendation model and then use your customers' data to make recommendations for them right online, right in real time. And another really neat thing, I think it's pretty cool about BigQuery, is what we call data Q&A, which is still, as far as I understand, I don't know if any Googlers would have an update, but it's still in private alpha. But this is leveraging some modeling, some analytics tools, natural language processing tools that Google has behind the scenes Essentially, this lets you ask a question of your data. Say, what is my top performing, my top selling product? So for users who don't have SQL experience or don't want it, they can just plug in to just ask a real natural language type of question. And that question will get translated into a SQL statement that'll actually be put against your BigQuery data and give your users real-time access to their data without even them having to know SQL, even about your data model. And that's still in private alpha as far as I understand, but it's something that's forthcoming. So it'll be pretty cool when that gets released. Right. So I just kind of ran through that quickly. I know we have a limited set of time we wanted to do for these presentations. I don't want to take all of Len's time. So does anyone have any questions or comments that they would like to make about BigQuery? No?
I had one quick question.
Sure.
As far as the storage is concerned, how does that look between external connectors and BigQuery? Like, where does that lie?
How do you mean exactly?
Like, how do you get data from external, like Facebook or Zap or other systems? How is that? What is used in order to? Yeah, there.
Well, one of the tools available is a data transfer service that you can hook up to on the cloud and actually transfer your data into BigQuery. There are probably others. I don't know if Len, might you know off the top of your head all the different...
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Eden.
I can take it. Yeah. So there's many ways to do that, right? It depends on what is the tools that you are familiar with. In Google, the native way to do things is with data flow. That will allow you to stream things from different sources. There are easy like point and click partners like Fivetran and others that will let you get data from a lot of places. There's Data Fusion, which is also available on Google with, I think, maybe around 100 plugins that will basically run a data flow job for you, but it's UI driven. Spark is a good way to get data into BigQuery. And you can also query the data from storage. So if you have your own pipeline already today, where you store the data in Parquet file or CSV or any other format, you can actually query that directly from BigQuery without even loading it into the storage.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the question. Thank
I have a
you.
question. You guys mentioned some streaming too. What's like, I know a lot of people kind of say that they stream live data and things. Are there like certain limitations, like only from like the Google connectors or Google sources, or with no like real model changes or kinds of things like that? I know we always get asked for like store reporting. They generally want live data because they're trying to hit goals throughout the day, and it doesn't really help as much seeing it the next day or things like that.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, you know, a lot of you don't have to go the streaming route if you need fresh data. You can do load every couple of minutes. The streaming is for use cases where you really want to take action in near real time with like seconds latency, right? So for those use cases, you will use streaming insert, and there is really no like limitation. It's an API. You can use it from either with templates that we provide with Dataflow or with the API. You know, it typically would be a code to insert the data in real time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, plus some of the sources too have automatic refreshes. Like for example, if you enable the Google Analytics integration, that will have an automatic refresh, but it's also dependent on how often data gets updated in GA. So you'll get it quicker than anyone if you go through the BigQuery integration, but there's still latencies involved in some of them. And there's different, and then the other thing too is depending on what you're doing, like we were mentioning how you can do federation into BigQuery. So you don't necessarily have to be looking at data that's inside a table or a data set inside of BigQuery. You could be pulling data that's coming from Cloud SQL. You could be pulling data that's coming from S3. And so if you have a real-time use case, you could just be pulling data from a transactional database, but then still be using BigQuery as your or location. So if you wanted to do a query, say you had a transactional database that was doing like e-commerce stuff, right?
Mhm.
And then you wanted to do a query that said, give me everything over 18 months. Your transactional may not have that, but then your BigQuery does because that's your warehouse. Then you can do a query across both of those sources.
Kind of combining them
Right.
to get the full scope.
Right. So that's a pattern that you'll see a lot, especially for folks who are doing stuff like the GA integration, because you're not going to store all your GA360 data in Class SQL, right? That's like millions of rows a day or a month or whatever.
I just like to add one more thing because I didn't. Len said GA, and you said limitation. There is limitation on the GA side. It's not the BigQuery side, but specifically for GA, there is a limitation of how much you can export in a day, depending on how much you pay, basically, to the GA side of the house.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, great questions, everybody. Any more questions for BigQuery before we move on to Looker? Great.
Cool.
Right.
All right.
So that's you, Len. Just let me know when you want to switch slides, and I can move.
Sure. I guess next slide. Let's jump right in. So one of the big things to understand about Looker is that it was kind of built originally to be different from how the folks looked at business intelligence. One of the first decisions that they made was they decided to use the database as power. So primarily when you're looking at data inside of Looker, it's coming from someplace else. It's not meant to be able to store data inside of it. It does have an interpretation layer that actually allows you to do additional modeling, but from the top, it's going to be looking at your source of data. The other part is the semantic modeling layer. What that does is that's what gives you the ability to do ad hoc query and basically give an ability for users to come in and just do their own intuitive interface rather than having to rely on you creating like a model for everything. You can do a certain amount of modeling and then make folks able to come in and query data the way they like to query data. The other goal of the system as well was being able to do data delivery and activation, because we know that when it comes to business intelligence, there's basically two main use cases. Someone wants to come in and look at some sort of a dashboard or do some sort of custom queries on data that they have. The other is you have to be able to do delivery of data because someone wants a report every day or someone wants a report every month. And so those were some of the goals that they put in already for the platform. Do you want to go to the next slide? The other thing too, and you'll see it here as well, is that we're Google Cloud. So we support multi-cloud use cases. And that's one of the big things about Looker to know about Looker is that Looker doesn't care where your sources are. They could be in lots of different places. And if you look at the bottom, you can see all the different sources that you could have. And that's not an exhaustive list because Looker has support for a lot more than this, but some popular stuff is there. SQL Server, Snowflake, Teradata, Azure, AWS sources like S3, Redshift, Hadoop. So if you want to do HDFS, or you want to do Oracle, any of the different Oracle products, or something like a Netezza data warehouse. But the idea behind it is that you can use Looker as your mechanism for modernizing how you use data and analytics. And of course, what you get with Looker is you get a modern BI and analytics. So you get real-time, scalable, flexible, so you don't have to worry about, you're going to run out of space or you're going to run out of something to be able. You get customizable dashboards, and I'll demo some of that in a second. That makes it really easy to be able to look at data because we know how this is, right? Spend a lot of time coming up with what you think is the best way of looking at the data. Then someone comes in and goes, "Oh, what if you add this column, this?" And you're just like, "Okay, am I going to have to think of all those use cases?" It's a lot better if you have someone able to actually go through and navigate themselves to be able to get their own answers. The other thing too is that integrated insights. So one of the things about this is that because this product has been used by lots and lots of different people from lots and lots of different use cases, it has a lot of smarts built into it about how to be able to handle how it presents data. So it really makes it easy to leverage it to be able to give someone insights. And then there's all sorts of UI elements. There's all sorts of accelerators and templates that you can use inside of Looker to be able to make something like exactly the way someone wants to make use of it. The other thing is the data-driven workflows. So you can get near real-time performance, and a part of that is the semantic modeling layer, which basically allows you to, because remember, your data is in your source. Your modeling layer allows you to add a lot of stuff on top of it, so you can do things like schedule reports based off of changes in data, or all sorts of customizations. So you want to do the next slide, Barry? So the big benefits are like what I mentioned before, which is you can serve up real-time dashboards, easy access to trustworthy data, because remember, your data is where it always was. You get integrated insights, so you can make use of relevant data, unify data from a lot of different places. Data-driven workflows allow you to be able to get data to folks in near real time. All you have to worry about is your semantic modeling layer. As data changes in your sources, your modeling layer may have to change a little bit, but the focus of it is that as data changes, what you get presented in Looker is going to look different. And then it has a strong API. In fact, that's actually one of the biggest things about Looker is the fact that it has a really strong API. So in addition to the modeling layer, there's all these different APIs you can access to be able to use data the way you want it, right? So you can, any type of use case you can imagine where you can actually use API to leverage your business intelligence, you can leverage with Looker. Next slide, Barry. So some of the things that are unique to Looker, and this is actually where we would think Looker has a differentiator. The first one is the virtual semantic layer, and what that and you'll get introduced to when you do this. When we do the Looker lab, you'll get introduced to that because you'll get to see how it does models and views and that type of stuff. But the idea behind that semantic layer is it abstracts away some of the details of your underlying data, and then allows you to be able to give your end users flexibility in how they leverage that data using your model. And so the other good thing about that is that the model is just text, and that can get incorporated into Git. So as time progresses, you end up with new ways of trying to imagine how your data can look. You can then also track the changes and to what you do with your modeling layer. And that's actually a really big deal because it actually makes it so that over time, as your data changes, as your needs change, you can then introduce new changes and not have to worry about, completely losing something. The other thing, the big advantage of it is the speed of the modeling that it does when it actually pulls data from the sources. It's actually very quick. So it may seem like the semantic modeling layer may slow things down, but it doesn't because it's very still high performance. The SQL abstraction, which is actually, you'll notice a lot of different things that you use, including in the demo that we're going to do today. It uses SQL because it makes it just really easy to understand stuff. So when you're doing something like in the model, it looks like SQL syntax. And then I mentioned before, it's text-based and it's Git version. Next slide, Barry. So the thing to remember about Looker is that the queries always run in the database. Your model makes a huge difference, right? But the queries for where actually gets pulled out that's in the database. So data is stored in the database and not in the BI tool, so you absolutely get real-time data. And I'll demo that in a second with a Looker demo, so you can see how stuff is in there. So it generates, using your model, it generates the SQL that actually does the querying on your sources. And it makes, there is some AI involved in that in terms of going from your model to what actually gets done. And then because it's pulling from your data sources, it's real time. So you don't have to worry about your modeling layer introducing any latencies or anything like that because it's done, it queries the stuff in real time. Next slide, Barry. Mm-hmm. So one of the other great things about the semantic layer is that there's an API for doing it. So you can query your modeling layer using API, and you can also update your modeling layer using API. And then it supports a bunch of different languages, JavaScript, Python, C#. So that a couple of things that does. One, it gives you a lot of flexibility of how you want to manage your modeling layer. So you're not restricted, I used to do a lot of SSIS back in the day, right? And so if you're doing SSIS, you're pretty much restricted to like two types of languages. It's either SQL or the programming language that SSIS uses. So that's kind of restrictive. Whereas with this, you'll be able to, if you're using JavaScript, great, you can use JavaScript. If you're using C#, great, you can use C#. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. The other thing too is that it makes it easy to leverage Looker in other types of visualization tools. So you're going to find that you're going to spend a lot of your time in Looker working on your visualizations and your modeling layers. The work you do on your modeling layers is you can leverage anywhere. You can use it and use your REST API calls to be able to populate different types of dashboards, different types of systems. Or you can use it to power other applications. So you could query the model that you have in Looker to be able to do some sort of different application. So for example, if you want to unify the view that an end user has with the view that some sort of administrator has, you can both be using the same data and the same model, but querying it in different ways. One with the Looker UI, the other with an API call. Next slide, Barry, please. Mm-hmm. So now you understand a little bit more about Looker. The BigQuery Looker integration works really well. So some of the stuff that you're going to get with that is that you're going to get heuristic insights, right? So you're going to be able to understand your data better based off of some of the capabilities you get with BigQuery. So things like custom cohorts, being able to track repeat purchase patterns, being able to leverage AI ML, because now your semantic modeling layer can actually query stuff directly from BigQuery. And BigQuery, you can, as you'll see in the hands-on lab, you can actually query things using AI ML, using SQL syntax. So your modeling layer would be able to do things like run inferences and then display the results in the UI layer. So that's really powerful. The other thing that you get with BigQuery Looker is that you can do things because of things like the GA360 or Google, forget the name of the library we have that for doing advertising, but you can do things like profiling and segmentation. And then we have built-in templates inside of Looker for being able to do that. And actually, the demo I'm going to show you is actually one of our templates for doing for monitoring what you do in e-commerce. So that's actually a really powerful facility. So when you're using Looker and BigQuery, you don't necessarily have to start from scratch. You can actually leverage a bunch of templates to be able to do typical things like querying GA360 or trying to come up with purchase patterns for customers. So both the models as well as the user interface components, you can leverage templates to do that. You don't have to start from scratch. Next slide, please, Barry. So, and like I said before, the Looker and BigQuery work really well together. So there's no redundant storage in your BI tool. Data transformation, 100% works in BigQuery because that's where your data is stored. It's easy to deploy and scale. You're not running any servers. You don't have to do any of that. The REST API gives you flexibility. So the investment you make in BigQuery and Looker, it's worth it. You can use it in different places. And then the virtual semantic layer and the database transformation makes it really, the sky's the limit in terms of what customizations you want to do or how you want to model the data. And that's really comes from a couple of things. One, BigQuery's flexibility, and two, the fact that Looker is the virtual data model layer and the API interface allows you to basically do whatever you think you need to do to be able to get the data out of the platform. Next slide, Barry. So let me do a quick demo of one of
sharing.
Yeah, I'll turn on in a second. Share a tab. So this is can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. So this is a web analytics dashboard, and this is actually one of our demos that we use. So this is Looker. This is what it looks like. This is one of the potential interfaces you have for Looker. I mean, obviously it has things like mobile interfaces. You have this thing known as Looker embedded, so you can like embed Looker into your website and stuff like that. But this is the default, one of the default interfaces. And so you can see it has some really nice responsive UI elements. And then over here, you can also do things like downloading the data automatically. So anything that you put up in the Looker dashboard, and then you can see here, it gives you the ability to query data. And then so if someone wants to customize something and then do an update, bam, it'll show you. And so this is one less thing you would have to customize, right? You just know that once you use a certain of these UI elements that come from a template, it automatically comes with the ability to do things like filtering and stuff like that. What else can I show you? So there's also a lot of UI elements. Like this is the one that uses GeoIP and then with a heat map. And then as it shows, you can actually see and you can dive down into data. And so this is actually one of the built-in Looker UI elements. And then of course there's a model behind this, but this is from a template. So literally you could take this template, which includes the UI elements and the modeling layer, and just drop it in with your data, and then you'd be able to populate it similar to this. This one's kind of cool actually because it can show you like links to where a lot of your customers are coming from. And then, oh, I didn't update it after I said only Firefox. Let me update it again. You see how quickly it updates. So, you're not, there's no lag and stuff like that because it's coming directly from, this one is coming directly from BigQuery. And then there's all the typical UI elements that you'd want to use from whichever BI platform. So all sorts of graphs, lots of different stuff in here. And then the other thing, not in this demo, but you could have some of these UI elements could be populated by running BigQuery ML. So if you're doing something like, you could have a filter, for example, that triggers an inference, and then shows a user interface thing that shows the result of running that inference. So if you wanted to do something like, what's the big product going to be 30 days from now? There's a way of doing it, because you can then query directly from here to be able to do that. So that's Looker in a nutshell.
Awesome.
All right, so if you want to put back the slides, please, Barry.
Sure.
I forget where we are. Are we gonna start the fun stuff with the labs?
I think we are there. I'm not sure how many more slides there are. Let me go get those. There we go. Lab time.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So if you have not sent me your if you didn't register using any of the platforms, you want to put your email address in the chat so I can add you to the Quick Labs. And then you'll have to register for Quick Labs if you haven't already done so. But once you do so, you'll go into Quick Labs, and then you'll get a prompt. Once you go into Quick Labs, you'll be able to see this event as what shows up on the left-hand side. So let me show you what this will look like. Yep, I'll add you, Jean. So once you register for Quick Labs, when you go to ce.quicklabs and log in, you'll see the classroom. You'll see the data immersion day classroom, and just click on that, and then you'll see the labs. And then the first lab that we're going to do.
Want me to share? Like maybe I can.
Oh yeah.
Share a little bit. Yeah. Here, I think my Quick Labs dashboard look a little bit differently than maybe what some of you might see, but you should see like a GCP data immersion day.
Mm-hmm.
Today's date in Philadelphia. You can click on that. Then you'll get to the different labs.
Yep. And the first one we're going to do is the one all the way at the bottom, actually.
Yeah, this one.
Quick start.
So you click on that, yep, and then you'll come to this, and then there's steps you can follow. And then when you're ready to get started, you hit Start Lab. And well, it gives you instructions on what to do, but some important things to notice are to make sure that if you bring up a incognito console or incognito window, I guess Chrome would be the recommended, but whatever browser you might be using, make sure it's incognito. That would just make sure that you're logged in to the right person, because when you hit Start, it's going to bring up. I give you a student ID and a password, and here this one's spinning up some resources. But you'll see here there's a username, password, GCP project ID, and then so you would log in with the username and the password. And then you want to do that in an incognito window. So that way you won't have any billing. If you use your own account, if you have one, you can, but then it'll incur some charges on your account. So the recommendation is to go incognito. So there's no confusion about who you'll be working as. You can use this information here to get onto the lab.
Is the Google Cloud training, is that a different account than a normal Google account? Like, do you need to create one there to log in?
Yeah, it's
on the Quick Labs.
Yeah, you'll have to register on the Quick Lab site.
Okay, so create one there.
Yeah, and you'll just use an email address and password.
You'll find as you go through here, most of the steps are pretty straightforward. It walks you through step by step what to do. And if there are some commands like here, you'll click on this button here to copy it into your clipboard. So you can just jump over to your session and do a Control-V or to paste that command to save yourself some typing. Especially with some of the
triggering it or starting up any of the labs. The only thing I would say is that when you start the lab, sometimes it'll say that it's provisioning, that you want to wait till it says it's finished provisioning. Like you see how it says end lab right here? And oh yeah, if it says it's provisioning, you want to wait till it's finished provisioning because it may not have created all the resources that you need to execute your lab. All right, and if you have any questions or any issues, just let us know in the chat, or just raise it in your voice, and we'll try to help you out because we got plenty of Googlers on the line, so we'll be able to help.
So, Len, do we just want to set aside 30 minutes for people to finish this?
Yeah, let's do that. So I'm gonna start my handy dandy timer for 30 minutes. And so say in about 1:50, we'll reconvene unless you have a question or something like that.
Awesome. Lynn? Lynn, are you there?
I'm here. Sorry, it just took me a while to get the mute button.
No,
I
no
think,
worries. No worries. I just wondered, Zalong is having some troubles with the course. I don't know if you could kind of verify. If you look in the chat, she was saying.
oh, yeah, she may not have access. Let me.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. I thought I would be able to find it somewhere, but turns out it's not.
Yeah, let me add you, and then if you refresh your screen after I add you, you should be able to get it. So let me add you now.
Awesome. Thank you.
I see some people already completed the lab. Okay, if you refresh your screen, you should have access now.
Yep, I see now. Thank you.
No problem. Sorry about that.
Don't worry.
So we got another 16 more minutes for the lab, and then we'll jump into the next lab actually.
Just to check in with everybody, Len mentioned many of you are already finished. Is anybody having any troubles? Anyone stuck in any steps of the lab? No, Zalong, you're just getting into it. But don't know if anyone else has had any troubles. Okay, good.
All right, folks, we have another 5 more minutes left, and I wanted to make sure I talked a little bit about where we're actually hosting this event. So we're actually hosting this event at the RevZilla offices. This is outside the office, what it looks like. And one of the really cool things about the RevZilla office is it's actually located right where there's a RevZilla physical store. And so, so you have the RevZilla store, and then you have the RevZilla offices, which is where we're at right now. So it's one of the coolest offices I've ever seen. I mean, how many offices have motorcycle pipe right outside like that? And then, of course, there's the RevZilla physical store. And then there's the rest of the office, which is actually a converted warehouse space. And it's very cool converted warehouse space. So there's a lot of things here that you would expect at a typical startup company. There's a game room and stuff like that. But it's just a very awesome space. And I'm really glad you guys allowed us to host here. This is very cool. So, and I want to also amplify, they're looking for people. So if you want to work in a cool office, where you can literally ride a motorcycle and it'll be for work. This is a great place to check out. And then, of course, check out some of their websites and their properties and Facebook stuff. I got myself a RevZilla shirt because that's all my wife will allow me to do with the motorsports stuff. So, but yeah, definitely appreciate you guys having us here. And check them out.
Motorcyclists can apply.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think we're coming up on time. Do you guys like those labs? I mean, it's a quick introduction, right? I'll show you some basic stuff. I particularly like how easy it is to just get data into BigQuery. I mean, you literally just say BigQ load and it shows up. And then you notice how doing that CSV, you don't have to do any schema, you don't have to do any like a 50 million different things to be able to. That's actually one of the comments I hear back a lot from folks who, once they start using BigQuery, is the fact that you can literally just get started and just, you can think about a lot of the details later. You can just immediately start importing your data and querying it. One of the things that I would definitely say that a next step after this lab is looking at some of the features that allow you to pull in from other sources other than just CSV from GCS. You can do things like federated queries from Cloud Storage, from Google Cloud SQL. We also have a product called Omni, which allows you to then also pull federated queries from, say, S3, or to pull data from Redshift or any other sources. So yeah, there's a lot of capability there, and but the biggest thing is that it's so easy to get started, and so yeah. So any comments or feedback?
I just wanted to say, I think what Jean had asked about the different ways to get data into BigQuery. I did find there's a blog post that was written about the multiple different ways you could do that, and it covers all the whole variety of different ways based upon your use case. So I'd say just take a look at that to give you a better idea of how what's the best way to get data into BigQuery. Even if you need to load it directly, there's federated queries. I think that Len had mentioned in the Looker context, but so you might not even need to load it into BigQuery, but you can explore that on your use case by use case basis.
Awesome. So any questions or anything about that first lab?
The only thing I was curious about is what's the difference between the Cloud Shell terminal and then we did the like the Lag Shadow service at the same window.
Oh, stop. So both are the same thing.
Okay.
It's just, so one of the cool things about Cloud Shell is that it supports URLs to be able to trigger things. So what that means is that you could actually pay somebody a URL, and it gets even more inception-y. You can do a Cloud Shell URL that actually opens a Cloud Shell window and also connects to a GitHub, and then does a pull from the GitHub into a folder, so you can immediately start work, and then also trigger a script. So one of the things you could do, for example, is you could do a URL that launches a Terraform, for example, and that Terraform can be pulled from GitHub. So there's a lot you can do with Cloud Shell, but the URL invocation is actually one of the coolest things. And then the URL invocation also includes a level of scripting. So you can do things like trigger a Terraform or launch, like in this example, it launched like a script inside of the shell. But it's the same thing.
Okay.
And then, so this is cool. Not only do you have Cloud Shell, but Cloud Shell is just one part of it. There's actually a Cloud IDE built into it as well. So I don't know if you noticed at the top of the screen, it said terminal, and then there was another tab. If you click on that other tab, it would actually open up our Cloud IDE. And so that's an IDE that's actually running on the Cloud Shell instance, so that you can then do, and it's very similar to Visual Studio Code. So you have all sorts of stuff in there, like filing completion, being able to link libraries, and then Cloud Shell comes in with built-in stuff like it has Terraform, it has Git, it has our Cloud SDK. So there's a whole bunch of, in fact, it's kind of amazing. And then you can actually write your own bash shell to run your own custom scripts on startup.
Okay.
So you could put in a bash shell that does, if you want some weird Go library, it has Go, but if you wanted some weird Go library, you could have it run in a bash shell. So as soon as you open up Cloud Shell, it will have that set up. There's 10 gigs of storage with Cloud Shell, but you can actually do what's known, you can run like a supercharged Cloud Shell that has more storage, more CPU for short periods of time, still for free. So if you, for example, had a really complicated Terraform and you knew that the default Cloud Shell just wasn't cutting it, you can run the super, I think it's called Turbo Cloud Shell. I forget what it's called, but it's actually a little thing that you can say, run it for now, and then you can run it for a period of time and it's still free. But yeah, Cloud Shell is one of those little hidden, it's got some stuff in there. It's kind of funny. Any other questions or feedback? All right, cool. So the next lab that we wanted you guys to take a look at is the Looker Developer Quick Start. So go ahead, just like before, just go back in and you should see under the list of labs, the Looker Developer Quick Start. So go ahead and start it up. And if you have any questions or comments, just let us know.
Actually, gonna hop out for a quick 30-minute one.
Yeah, 2 o'clock, right?
Yeah. But I'd say something, grab you guys right after that.
Yeah,
I actually used to run our Looker stuff, so I know all the mail and everything behind it anyway. So
Nice. No, and we're going to leave the labs running for the
Gotcha.
weekend, so you guys can check them out later. I mean, it's going to be the same URL, c.labs.com.
Yeah, sure.
So like I said, if you have any questions or comments, just text us in the chat window. If you're running it over the weekend, you send me an email, I may see it, but probably we can get a response.
Well, yeah, we can hop back. Are you guys continue now?
Yeah, we're going to be here till 3:30.
Okay.
Thank you.
So hey, folks, maybe another 20 more minutes for this lab. Okay, maybe 5 more minutes, and then we'll close up on that second set of labs. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for working on that lab. Any questions about that lab? I know it seems like a short lab, but the reality is that it actually covers some good territory in Looker, because it really gets you into the high level of the semantic model of how Looker works. And I know the user interface is simple, but it's not too much of a stretch to see how you can get more complicated interfaces using those models and views. So any questions about what you did in that lab? All right, cool. So the next lab actually is one of the probably the most interesting one, and probably the one that's going to take the most time. So I'll still put it in as 30 minutes because you guys seem fast, so you're probably able to finish it. But technically, it's supposed to be a 45-minute lab. But it's the getting started with BQML, and TLDR is, and Barry mentioned this before. BigQuery ML essentially allows you to use SQL to do machine learning inside of BigQuery. So you can both use your BigQuery data to train, and then use your BigQuery data to run inference using the models that you trained. And so that's really cool because it really lowers the barrier to entry for leveraging machine learning using BigQuery. So if you're a person who's used to just using SQL or used to just using BigQuery, you can immediately get productive using BQML. And Barry showed you the list of all the different capabilities, classifications, the different types of models that are available inside of BQML. So this is a chance to get started using BQML and to see how quickly you can leverage machine learning. As you know, machine learning and BigQuery are two of the big things that we do in Google Cloud. So this is a great introduction to that. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Barry.
No, well, you'll see in the lab that it does make it really simple to actually to go ahead and use those models. Models are pre-built for you inside of BQ. So yes, it's a good high level just to get your feet wet a little bit, and you'll see how simple it is.
Awesome. So let's give another 30 minutes to run those labs, and then we'll probably try to wrap up for the day. And if you have any questions or anything running the labs, just let us know, and we'll just go from there. But I'm going to be on mute, but I'll be here. So if you have any questions or anything, just put a question in the chat window, and we'll try to get you some answers. All right, folks, we have another 10 more minutes before we finish up here on the labs. And then, like I said, we'll leave the lab environment running over the weekend. And so you'll have a couple more days to come back in and try them out to see how they are. And then if you have any other questions or anything, you can send myself an email or contact us via the meetup link or via, or I sent an email out to all the other attendees who registered on 66 Degrees. So yeah, another 10 more minutes and then we can answer any more questions or anything else before we close out. All right, everyone. Hopefully you got a chance. And like I said, we're going to leave the labs open for the next couple of days over the weekend, so you guys can actually have a chance to go through them again. Do y'all have any comments, feedback on any of those labs? I mean, hopefully y'all picked up some new tricks using that stuff, especially that BQML one, because it covered so much territory. Yeah, BQML is you're welcome, Elizabeth. No, BQML is it's pretty cool. I mean, the idea of being able to use SQL syntax to be able to train a model and then be able to run inference on it and then just treat it as a regular SQL query. I mean, it seems like a simple thing, but it's just really powerful. You know? And especially since it covers so many different use cases, like, you know, recommendation engines, sort of classifying. I mean, classifiers in general is one of those things that's really hard to get into if you don't have an AI/ML background. So being able to train your own classifier and then just be able to run classifications on it is pretty powerful. So yeah, definitely spend as much time over the weekend working on that, on those labs as you can. So I wanted to give a shout out again to Komodo. I wish you guys could see this office if you came here in person. It is fairly awesome of an office. It's a converted warehouse, and they also have quite a few things here. So they converted to office space. So there's, you know, a gym, an arcade. There's also, I mentioned before, there's a retail store up at front, which is full of some cool stuff. I was checking out, they have these airbags that you can ride with on a motorcycle, y'all. I don't know if you've heard of this technology, but basically you have an airbag that you put on like a jacket, and then you put your riding jacket over. And then if it detects anything like an accident, it deploys. So it can, you know, yeah, let me give you the physical address, because there's actually a retail store here in case you want to come check it out. But yeah, let me give you the address. So if you ever need any sort of any sort of motorcycle gear, you can definitely come check it out. And I myself picked up one of their t-shirts because it's pretty cool. But thanks again. And like Revzilla mentioned, they're on Google Cloud, so they use a lot of our services. So if you're interested in working with a company that uses Google Cloud, definitely give Russ a ping. He gave his contact information earlier. So yeah, one thing I want to give a shout out for is that we're working on an ad tech focused event for the month of November. So hopefully everyone's going to be attending Next in October. So there's going to be lots of marketing stuff associated with Next. I know probably 66 Degrees. You guys are doing the yacht viewing party again for Next, right?
Yeah, we have actually, I'll be doing a partner presentation. I have another colleague of mine in the Austin area. He'll be doing another one as well. Actually, I'll be doing mine on BigQuery and BigQML.
Yeah. So, but no, for Next, you guys have like in Miami, you guys have a viewing party for Next, right?
Oh, sorry. I believe so. I don't know all the details, since I'm just kind of focused on my presentation, but I think we are doing something, being a premier partner and one of those doing a partner presentation. I'm sure there'll be something. I don't know the details just yet, though.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have them in a bunch of different places, but all month of October, just look out for Next. There's a bunch of different things. We'll contact you because we do that for Next for October. But in November, we're working on doing like an ad tech focused one of these hands-on lab workshops where you get to see a presentation. And then also get a chance to play around with the service. So I'll keep you posted. And then, yeah, I mean, our partner 66 Degrees, I want to thank you guys for helping out and helping us get the message out. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to working with you on another one of these again, Barry, if you're interested.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you, Len. Thanks for all your efforts, and thanks, Komodo, for hosting.
Yeah, we definitely want to give another shout out to Komodo. And yeah, like I said, we're going to leave the labs open over the weekend so you guys have more time to work with them. If you have any other questions about them, if you have any feedback for us on this, let us know. My contact information is on the calendar invite if you guys received it. And, yeah, This was fun. And I got to see a really cool office. Usually I'm not allowed into offices because all of my cool offices are not around. so it's nice to come to an office that kind of feels like a Google office. That's kind of nice. So we'll have a website sharing these videos so you guys can see the event afterwards. So if there's anything you're interested in, and then yeah, thanks again, and we'll see you at another one of these Study Jam events in the future.
Thanks so much.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.